Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Damini Divakar. On behalf of InfoComm India and AIILSG, I would like to welcome everybody to today's webinar, Transforming Indian Cities Sustainable Strategies for Inclusive Urban Development. Today, our invited experts will deliberate on smart cities planning, leveraging cutting-edge urban planning approaches that utilize technology, data analytics, equitable mobility solutions, understanding the importance of providing equitability and accessibility mobility solutions in Indian cities, digital governments, and citizen engagement. For today's session, would like to remind a few housekeeping rules. There will be a question answer session for which you can type your questions and send us via chat box. To best view the webinar, please select speaker view or hide non-video participants. With that, I would like to take privilege of inviting Mr. Ravi Ranjan Guru, Deputy Director General, AIILSG, for welcome remarks and keynote address. Sir, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you, Damini, for inviting InfoComm, inviting us for this webinar. And we are very fortunate to have this partnership with the InfoComm for since long time. Uh, the topic of the discussion today is very important, and I know I am seeing the Sudhir Krishna sir and all the eminent personality here, and I think. I know that the kind of urbanization when started in India, the ministry has started taking initiatives, and Sudhir Krishna sir was the pioneer on those time, and when the actually government of India has thought to have urban missions in India. I still remember the JNNURM and all those schemes when actually the government of India has the started priority looking into the urbanization as a missions and since then it's been a long journey, and as All India Institute of Local Self Government we are providing all sorts of support and kind of framework and the platform to Indian cities, and we are providing the not only the technical support, but we are also providing the training support, capacity building programs. And as a organizations, we are very old organizations. We started in 1926, and when we see the history of AILSG, we have been working with the urbanization since long time in India. And our many objective and activities is directly or indirectly linked with the providing the support and the networking system in India. And today also, as most of the project and missions which Government of India is running, and if you look into those areas like smart cities, Swachh Bharat Mission, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, or maybe any other missions and schemes, All India Institute of Local Self Government is empaneled agencies and providing all the technical supports to the cities in India. I don't want to talk about the urbanization in India, but we all know that the challenges are huge. And I remember recently when we organized the Asian Cities Summit, where the mayors and the officials, speakers across the Asia and the world, they joined us in Delhi. That time I have listened a lot of speakers that talk about that the now, for example, the smart cities and the Swachh Bharat missions programs which Government of India is running at the moment, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, they are really a milestone, and it's not an option but now necessities. The kind of urbanization happening here in India, the I was reading some of the articles and the informations, and I saw, and we know that the kind of influx from the rural to urban going to happen by 2030 and 2050. So city has to be ready for those challenges, and not only the basic necessities, obviously the water, sewage, transportation. All these are going to be a major challenges for incoming days. So this is not the option now. This is the we have to do that and act now. So looking to the government of India's initiatives, most of these missions and schemes are in line with those challenges. We as organization, as individuals, we have been working and providing those supports to the cities in India. We are the one who actually worked on the smart city programs in some of the cities in India. We work with the Bilaspur, we work with the Raipur, and also today also we are working and providing the technical manpower support to Aligarh municipal corporation under the smart cities missions. We are also part of urban 20 missions, which government of India, that G20, which is with the India in government of India. So one of the engagement group was the urban 20. In urban 20 also, AILAG has played an important role, and we were since starting when the U20 cycle started in India, we were providing the all kind of support, not only with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Sorry,
All
I'm
right.
back now. So I was on the talking about the urban 20. So we ALAZ has provided the kind of support in urban 20 cycle this year. And recently the main event, the Meral Summit, happened in Ahmedabad, where actually the draft Comnic, the final Comnic was released, and we played an important role, obviously, with the other agencies like National Institute of Urban Affairs, and the UCLG aspect, CityNet, but ALAG was also engaged into, drafting those Comnic. So we played an important role in that component as well. Further to this, as a urbanization, and when we have recently or studied one of the program, the smart cities, so we looked into the kind of challenges that the smart cities are facing, or maybe the other missions have facing the challenges. We found that the major requirement is a capacity at the urban local bodies. And I'm sure that when we discussed many times with the Sudhir Krishna sir and the other eminent personality, they also emphasize that the capacity required at the urban local bodies are important. So, as an organization, I must say that we are the one who is leading the number of we have organized and trained more than I'll say that we organized more than 200 training programs in various regions. Recently also we are organizing the capacity building programs in government of Madhya Pradesh for elected representative. We are also providing all sorts of technical support in developing the GIS master plan. We are working with the many cities in India where we are looking into the master plan activities and how the sustainable components can be included into when we developing the master plan of the cities. We are working with the Haridwar, Roorkee, and then some of the cities in Arunachal Pradesh and some of the cities in Uttar Pradesh. We are also providing the support to the Ujjain Municipal Corporation, because we understand that when we are looking for the basic infrastructure, and when you are looking into how to integrate or implement the basic infrastructural project, so you need a lot of investment and money. So obviously, including those things, you need to look into the how the revenue of urban local bodies can increase. And I remember working very closely with the Delhi Finance Commission report with Sudhir Krishna sir. He also a lot of emphasis was given how to increase the financial condition of urban local bodies. And we looked into the various components kind of revenue models that can be worked out. And we are very happy to say that in Ujjain and many other cities, we are helping the cities in terms of GIS property taxation. So we are mapping the cities, the entire GIS based taxation system. That is also where we are helping the cities. So overall, I'll say that India and the Indian cities need lot of intervention into the basic infrastructures to cater the upcoming urbanization and challenges that they might face in coming year. And they also need to look into how the revenue can be increased. The last component that I wanted to touch it here, and I'm sure that most of the speakers today will talk about those things, about the kind of infrastructure in terms of housing society is required. You know that when in most of the Indian cities, the big metro cities have a lot of issues related to housing sectors. Though Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is helping a lot and many houses were built, but still the gaps are huge. And I think that is also the things that need to be taken care when you are planning and when you are talking about the future and the transforming Indian cities. So with this, once again, welcome all of you, all the speakers and delegates on behalf of InfoComm and AILSG. And I'm here. If you have any question, I can answer later on also. And thank you once again for joining. And I'm sure that today's deliberation will benefit all of you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Damni. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to express my gratitude to Mr. Ranjan for establishing the context of the webinar. To maintain the flow of our conversation, I'd now like to commence by introducing our panelists. We have with us today Dr. Sudhir Krishna, former Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Mr. Abhishek Saxena, public policy professional expert on sustainable transport and climate change, formerly in Niti Aayog. Mr. Rumi Ajaz, Senior Fellow, Observer Research Foundation. Welcome, a warm welcome to you, all of you, sir. Last but not the least, we are joined by Mr. Abhishek Pandey, the editor of Urban Update, who will be taking on the role of sessions moderator. Mr. Pandey, the platform is now yours.
Thank you so much, Damni. I hope I am audible. Am I audible?
Okay. Yes, you are.
So thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Ravi sir, our keynote address for this session. So he has summed up the India's requirements and what many institutions, including Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and there are different agencies which are doing work supporting urban local bodies, because whenever we discuss, we talk about urban local bodies, role is paramount in addressing sustainability and inclusivity issue. Why I am saying this and why the topic of this webinar is important: sustainable strategy for inclusive urban development. We all know that by 2050, we are going to add millions of people. The number of people living in urban areas in India going to be in the north of 800 million. So that is the report from the United Nations and different international organizations. Out of this, how many people, even we see the city like Mumbai, why inclusivity is important? Mumbai is a city of dreams, but more than 50% of population still live in slums. So that is the problem of inclusivity. And why this issue of inclusivity comes to the fore, we have seen during the pandemic, many of the migrant population which were living in cities, they suffered. Because we are not making people only for the select few, we are making cities for everyone. And if cities are not for everyone, we cannot make our cities inclusive, sustainable, and long-term sustainable. Because if it is only for the few, it will not be sustainable in long run. So number of people in India are living in slums. I think the last census told us that somewhere 18 to 20% people, more than that, were living in slums. There are also the issue of basic services in these slums, that they do not have access to water, inadequate housing facilities, and there are multiple challenges: sanitation issues, access to toilet. And thanks to the different missions of Government of India, we have started looking at cities as they are essential for nation's prosperity. we have heard many times that India is a reluctant urbanizer. And that is why over the last 75 years, we have seen the focus, India's urban focus of development was villages. Of course, it is a political issue also. The majority of population living in rural areas. But we have to see if countries 60 to 70% of GDP is coming from cities. We have to make them sustainable and inclusive so that they can cater to the demands of migrants, poor people, differently abled population, and also if you are seeing that in many countries the problem of aging population is coming up. So they are devising many mechanism to support elderly population. We have seen in Japan and different other countries that how they are making their cities for those are elderly friendly, for disabled friendly, women friendly. So gender mainstreaming, child friendly cities, elderly friendly cities. These are the components in city planning and development we need to look into. And the best thing that India's urban advantage is that India has started developing its cities. Many of the cities we are developing from scratch. We have seen in Smart Cities Mission and new cities that we are developing in different parts of India. Of course, there is we are retrofitting and redeveloping some parts of the cities, but we need to build. I think in McKinsey report in 2010, they have said that India need to build one Bombay every year or many Bombays every year to sustain India's urbanization. So there are multiple issues. So I will not take much of your time because more learned speakers are with us. So first of all, I will invite Dr. Sudhir Krishna, who has been at the helm of affairs when India started its first urban mission, we can say it, because the scale of JNNURM was really huge. And Dr. Sudhir Krishna was at the helm of affairs and he drove that mission and ensured that India is not just the big cities, but this planning and the policy reaches to the small cities also. So I will invite Dr. Sudhir Krishna. He needs no introduction. So over to you, Dr. Krishna, for your introductory remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhishek, and good morning to everyone. I think Mr. Ravi Ranjan Guru and Mr. Abhishek have set the tone very well. I would like to take it forward by saying that while urbanization is supposed to be very high in India, but I believe that it is not very high still. It is going to become higher and higher. And we have the urbanization level of just in about 35%, and it is among the lowest in the world. And therefore, we have to prepare the cities. We have to prepare ourselves at the apex level, national level, at the state level, and at the local levels to receive the migrating population from rural areas to urban areas. And the trend of migration has to be understood. Today, not many are willing to migrate from rural area to mega cities. In fact, the migration is more to the medium towns. And I mean, class 1 cities, all right, but not to the mega cities. So therefore, the smaller towns need a lot of attention. Smaller and medium towns having population of up to 10 lakh, starting with, let us say, 50,000 and up to 10 lakh. If 50,000 in our country becomes, very small population for a city. But if you see globally, 50,000 is also considered very high. So cities and side by side, the areas surrounding the cities, like the villages which are pertinent to the cities, they are also a very important player in the adjusting the trend of urbanization because they support the cities. They support the cities economically and socially. And of course, environmentally also there is an intertwining. So this is one challenge. And the other thing is the issue of sustainability. It's a very peculiar and situation that has arisen. We have got one very fine example to begin with, the Sabarmati riverfront redevelopment in Ahmedabad. It was the Sabarmati river was nothing but a nala until say 20 years, 15 years ago. And it was nala and they was full of slums, full of, more than 10,000 houses were there of the nature of slums. and the rehabilitation, the Sabarmati redevelopment project rehabilitated the slum people into a very fine residential complexes, and with economic activities also intertwined. And the riverfront was developed. It has become a money minting proposition for the city and whosoever was involved in managing that area. There is a corporation and so on. So that is one example where a river which was a filthy river has become a place where you visit. If you visit Ahmedabad, you should not miss, and you will, once you go there, next time also you would like to go. The other side is when rains came, because Sabarmati river had no water and they poured water from somewhere, and that is other side is, say, the example of Delhi. Just a month ago or 2 months ago, heavy rains, the flooding was so much that when rain subsided, still the city remained flooded. Unprecedented flooding in the National Capital Territory, even after the rains had subsided. There was the drainage planning for the region. So it is the now requirement is regional planning. The local area planning is necessary, but regional planning is also to the fore. Not only the drainage planning, which is very, very crucial, primary level of planning, even transportation planning. People come to city and they end up, not very rich people are coming to major cities. They would like to stay in areas like, if you talk of Delhi, they would like to stay in places like Gurgaon or Noida or Greater Noida and come to work to Delhi and go back. It is the poor people, the lower strata, like the security guards and so on, who come and then stay in slum-like situation. So regional connectivity, where people can live in village, come to the city comfortably with about 1 hour or so of comfortable ride through regional transportation network like NCR Transport Corporation is going to provide or started providing, and then go back to the place of abode in the rural area. So this is the second level of regional planning required. And thirdly, the governance reforms are urgently called for. A city does not know who is their father. Of course, on paper, mayor is the city father, all right. But really, we know that municipal corporation are, municipalities are just one of the numerous players in the city management. In fact, sometimes they are a minor player in many ways. And there are many other players operating, even in the like development. A lot of money with development authorities, little work for the development authority. Very less money with the municipalities, and a lot of responsibilities with the municipalities. And there are parallel parastatals like water board and so on and so forth, who are also having huge role to play in city management affairs. So strengthening the municipal bodies, giving them the legal and the capacity, managerial capacities, financial capacities, to become the real managers of the city is called for. So I think all these are the issues which we, among other issues, which we need to be addressed to make cities really vibrant places. Otherwise, as slums are there, I find that we have built more than 1 crore of houses under the PMAY urban. But where are the slums? Slums are where they were. There is no reduction in the slums. So there is some mismatch between our policies and our programs, between on-ground realities, which has to be resolved, for which local bodies have a lot of role to play. So here I end, and in course of time we will discuss more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So we have talked about that urban local bodies, the issue of governance, and the importance of regional planning. So we need to focus on how these cities are supported through different networks, maybe through peer-to-peer learning or the hand-holding support from expert agencies. So we need to provide them knowledge. We need to ensure that cities has access to financial resources to address the problems they are facing. The problem of slums, as rightly pointed out by Sir, the drainage issue, that we have seen that Delhi was flooded like anything during the in July, August. So these are the issues that we need to address. So we will ask some questions to our panel, but before we do, we have Rumi Ajaz sir. I would like him to give his introductory remarks, but I will just, before I give hand over to him, I will request our audience, they can post their question in chat box. And after all the speakers have spoken, we will take your question. Please write your name and the question you are asking is directed to which speaker. And we will take after this panel discussion and the presentation we have from Lay Transformation of Play by Mr. Ashish Verma. So over to you, sir. Rumi, sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Abhishek, and the organizing team, of course. And it was a wonderful experience and pleasure to listen to the previous speakers who covered a lot of ground in this sector. And my views might not be very different from what they have stated, except that I think I'm going to place things in a slightly different manner. So the wording could be a little different. In my impression about this topic of transforming cities and ensuring inclusiveness is that India has come a long way insofar as its urban development journey is concerned. Several things have been done over the course of years. As rightly pointed out by previous speakers and Mr. Abhishek, that previously the focus was on rural areas because that's where the entire population or majority of the population was living. And over time, a demographic shift was observed. Some centers or some human settlements began to display characteristics which were different from rural. They were classified as urban according to the definition that Indian government follows. Several people moved to already established or whose civic status was urban, they moved to those centers. So gradually the urban population of India began to increase. And if you look at the numbers, as Dr. Sudhir Krishna rightly pointed out, around independence, and since Census of India follows a decadal system of compiling population data, in 1951, about 60 to 62 million people were living in urban areas. This was about 16% of the country's population living in centers designated as urban. In 2011, when the last census of India was held, this number grew to 377 million. And in terms of proportions, about 31% of India's population lives in urban areas. According to some estimates provided by the Government of India and its departments, about nearly 500 million people live in urban areas of India, which is about 35% of the country's population. And this number is going to gradually increase. The issue here is that while India is relatively less urbanized when you compare with many other nations of the world that are over 70%, 80% urban, the absolute numbers in India are huge, which means that there is a tremendous pressure of population within urban areas, especially cities, on the land, infrastructure, and civic institutions that are responsible for governing urban areas. So that's where the difference lies. And this also means that India is going to urbanize in a major way in the coming years. It's 30 to 35% urban at the moment, but this percentage is going to increase, which means that the agencies in urban governance should be prepared to handle the responsibilities that are going to come in terms of catering to the needs and requirements of the urban population. Now, while a lot of work has been done by the civic institutions, insofar as the urban situation is concerned, several positive outcomes of urbanization are being derived in terms of the opportunities that are provided in urban areas to the population and the access to basic amenities and facilities. But there are several problems, as rightly pointed out by the eminent speakers in this gathering, about the social inequalities that exist in Indian society, especially in urban areas, and the inferior quality of life. This is something that needs to be urgently addressed. And there are several areas of concern, like, for example, number one, according to me, is public security. Then there is the issue of environment. Then there is the issue of uh, uh, resilience. And poverty also is there to a great extent in urban areas. So, in my opinion, to conclude my introductory remarks, I would say that there's an urgent need to first understand the magnitude of urbanization that is occurring in the country. Some people say that India is more urbanized than what the government is trying to portray or highlight. The second thing is that there is a need to strengthen governance. A lot of initiatives are already underway, but I think an approach like the one adopted under the Smart Cities mission of the Government of India could prove to be handy in addressing the challenges. It may be a small drop in the ocean if you look at the problems that Indian cities are experiencing, but positive outcomes are being derived. This mission is criticized by many as it lacks democratic principles, etc. But I think one needs to think of the outcomes that are being derived through the mission. So it needs to be understood how this mission can be expanded, how ULBs in the country can adopt a similar approach, and how the technology, the use of technology under the mission, especially the constitution of integrated command and control centers, can be established in all urban local bodies of India. So this is something which we can discuss further. Over to you, Mr. Abhishek. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You highlighted very important topic that the inclusivity and the disparity in Indian cities, especially in providing basic civic services, public security you underlined, and the environmental issues that each and every city, not just in India, but I think around the world, we are facing. And that's why many cities are facing the impacts of climate change, and the poor people, especially the disadvantaged community, they are facing wrath of those impacts of environmental degradation and climate change. Now I would like to move to Mr. Abhishek Saxena. So he was in Niti Aayog earlier, and he's a public policy expert. So I would request him to give his introductory remarks, and then we will discuss some questions that I have from the important addresses that our eminent speakers have given. So over to Mr. Abhishek Saxena. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pandey, and thank you, AILSC. It's always a pleasure to be back over here. Wonderful opening remarks by my co-panelists. So, let me just start with, describing what I think is the landmark feature for urbanization of India. And to my mind, the best way we can describe urbanization of India is by quote unquote a feature of skewed urbanization. Now, let me elaborate on why I say that India's urbanization is skewed urbanization. We all know the facts and figures. According to Census 2011 data, around 32% of our population was living in urban areas. By 2030, the number is slated to be around 40%. Broadly, I'm saying, not going into the exact numbers, but this is how the urbanization patterns look. Now, why I say that is the India's urbanization is skewed is primarily because of a couple of factors. So the first factors is, what happens in lot of Western countries where urbanization has gone at a much faster rate is, you have a set of cities which have a population of X, and they are the highest populated cities of the world, of that country. Now, what happens is at the tier 2 level, the population of cities would be half of X. Now, consider this and try to impute this to the condition of India. You have cities like Delhi's and Bombay's and Chennai and Bangalore, which have a population of more than 20 million at this point of time. And if you move to the 9th most populated city, it is Surat. it is close to 4 million according to 2011 data. Now, if you go much deeper into that, your cities would be, as Dr. Krishna has already said, would be in the range of 1 lakh to 10 lakh only. And that might seem to be a very small figure according to Indian numbers, but this still is a huge number. So what has happened is there is not an even urbanization that has happened. You have too much load on cities like Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, Calcutta, the top 9 super metros of India. And the rapid pace of urbanization, which should have happened to cities, to the next layer of cities, which are Bhopal, Lucknow, Raipur, probably Chandigarh. So all these cities have not grown at that pace. So that is the first feature of the skewed urbanization. The second feature of the skewed urbanization that India has had is, we need to understand what we mean by urbanization, especially in the Indian context. And we should not be, copying the definition which has already been assigned by the Western countries. So urbanization has gone back in India and the Indian continent since the Indus Valley civilization. So you have cities like Dhulavira, you have cities like Harappa in the Indian subcontinent, which had the best drainage systems of the world and which has the best urbanization planning that you can think of at that point of time. Now, how do you define urbanization? So the Government of India definition and the definition which has been propelled by the Western world is that a group of people, an aggregation which has a certain level of density, and it does not depend on agriculture as such. A very important point to note here is that, outside the designated urban centers in India, you have peri-urban centers which are classified as rural but are behaving in an exact fashion as an urban centers. Now, why I say that is, and it is very much important to understand here is a lot of rural centers have shifted their base from agriculture. They have moved to non-farm activities. Either they are looking at dairy, either they are looking at fishing, or either they are looking at providing services to the urban center through their construction laborers. Now, these cannot be classified as rural areas because they don't fulfill any of the criteria, whether it is agriculture, whether it is the density. So their problems are exactly the same as any urban centers, which is of drainage, which is of electricity, which is of sanitation, which is of healthcare, which is of education. And, in the policy paradigm, they are not considered as urban, so we are not tackling them as such. So I think there is a need to revisit that definition of urbanization also in India. The next feature of skewed urbanization of India, which I think is happening, is in countries like USA and UK, you have a car-driven urban planning. You have an automobile-based urban planning where you are trying to move vehicles and not trying to move cars. Sadly, and I must admit that at least in the super metros, which is the Delhis and Bombays, we are seeing the car driven urbanization pattern that is happening. You are seeing a slew of flyovers. You are seeing a slew of super highways cutting across cities, and you have a dearth of non-motorized transport. You virtually see absence of pedestrian footpaths. You virtually see absence of public transportation means. So just to give you an example, India has 721.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Abhishek. 30 seconds are left. So can you please wind up?
Sure. So, in India has 721 districts, and out of that, only 53 districts have something called a public transportation system. Now, how do you define it? I'm not even getting into that, but only 53% have a single bus that is running, at least a single bus that is running for public transportation. The rest even do not have even an iota of public transportation. So it's in an abysmal state. Now, let me put you on the opportunities side of it. STUs we are moving into a world which is electric, which is connected, which is shared mobility. So the government of India has come up with a tender for electric buses. We have recently released a tender for 10,000 electric buses. So cities have a lot to capture on that side. And I think the public transportation should be the backbone of urbanization and electrification, which reduces greenhouse gas emissions, which reduces air pollution, which improves quality of lives of the citizens, is the way forward for that. So I think I'll rest my remarks here, and I can get back in case of any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and Mr. Saxena, for speaking about skewed urbanization in India and what kind of these peri-urban areas are acting like urban, but we are, as a government, maybe it's a state government or central government, that we have not recognized. I think there are census towns which are governed by rural local bodies in India. There are census towns. So we have to look at urban problems from a different prism, and then only we can solve these urban issues. Now, we have some questions for the panel. So first, I would like to go to Dr. Krishna. He has spoken about very important issue of how our governance system can be improved and what kind of focus we should have. My question to Dr. Krishna is, sir, we have seen that you have led Jan scheme in India. And as Mr. Saxena was telling that, and you were also highlighting that small cities have many challenges, whether it is of capacity or financial resources. So how you see that these small towns, small from the Indian point of view, but because in Europe these could be called very big towns. So how do you see that urban local bodies in India can resolve these issues of sustainability and inclusivity? Over to you, sir. Sir, you are in mute. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, the solution lies on two sides. One is on the side of the local bodies themselves, and other is on the side of the government. Because in our constitutional framework, though we have introduced 74th Amendment to give legal status or constitutional status to the municipal bodies, and 73rd Amendment for panchayats, of course. But on the status is that state governments and state legislature have to give real whatever they want, power they want to give to municipalities, only that will be given. The Constitution does not give any specific power to the municipalities as such. It only indicates. So therefore, the governments have to make up their mind whether parastatals have to continue as an independent entity like water board or like transportation systems and so on. Abroad, you see the city not only handles transportation system, but also even police also in many cities, police in countries, police is also under the municipality. So, and not only the water and so on and so forth. So subject to regional framework, we have to have regional bodies also. Transportation system in the region, so therefore there has to be regional planning, regional transportation authority and so on. But the democratic arrangement of a unified governance body at different levels, municipal level and sub-municipal level and regional level, it is the government has to decide on the framework. And we are seeing that multiplicity of agencies is not only not able to resolve the problem. It only in some way it is good, but in some way it does not serve the purpose. So that is one. On the side of the municipality, they have to be strengthened. They have to have confidence also. Like if you are tied to bed and told that you are not strong to run around and for some time, then when you are released, then you would not be able to walk for some time. So municipalities also deserve to have some confidence building measures also. They have to be given staff, and the processes have to be there, manuals have to be updated, and funds are reasonably well nowadays. After the successive state and central finance commission grants, the financial position of municipalities has improved significantly. But now the question of absorbing the availability of funds, because funds are coming not directly to municipality in full measure. Partly it comes directly as grant, and a lot of come through schematic arrangements. This scheme, that mission, that Pradhan Mantri, this Yojana, that Yojana, and so on. To understand that, to prepare the programs, projects, partake money and execute the programs also requires capacities. So capacity building of municipalities, it is not difficult. It is not difficult. One has to have a framework, strengthen the municipality by giving them a staffing framework, by process framework. And as I said, finances are nowadays not such a problem, but the training of the staff, proper training, capacity building, which AILSG is one of the premier institutions in this capacity building arrangement. But there are other also. So I would say that both sides, if they work with a clear vision and purpose, because ultimately citizens' responsiveness has to be handled by municipalities. We have to accept that. We cannot go on denying it. In fact, if you see at times, I feel that the schemes and programs have weakened the municipalities because they have got lost in some way, not in all ways. In some way, the smaller municipalities particularly get lost in the myriads of scheme floating around, and the terminologies and the processes and the requirements, etc., of the processes. So I think everything is there. We have to rework the arrangement and make the municipalities stronger in all ways. That will really provide a sustainable resolution to a good living in the cities and make cities really vibrant economically, environmentally, and socially.
So before I move on to next speaker, I just want to, there is a supplementary question because we see that Indian municipal revenue to GDP ratio, if we see that India's municipal revenue is 1%, somewhere 1% to GDP ratio. But in developed country, it is 6%, 7%. So what is your say on this?
You see, the thing is, the moment we have switched over to GST regime, the municipal revenues have come to further shrunk. For example, Octroi. Now, Octroi was contributing. Now even Bombay is still having that, but Octroi was a very important source of revenue for the municipalities, and it has now, because it has become part of the GST. So what municipality is left with now? Even of course, property taxation is important, and municipalities must focus on that. It is no denying that the octroi was a major source of revenue, but there are wonderful sources of non-tax revenues also for the municipality. Taxation revenue is important. The property taxation and the profession tax is also in income tax. So there is an apparent duplication, but we must respect the municipality's own identity. If you go to the USA, there is a local income tax also. The income tax of the state, income tax of the center, income tax of the municipality. So we have to empower municipalities to levy taxes on personal income also. Profession tax has to be strengthened, because professionals are deriving a lot of benefit from the city itself where they live, and therefore they must pay tax, and those who are in organized professions. And as I said, property taxation needs a considerable revision and review. I mean, I live in Gurgaon, and I feel so embarrassed that my house, which would cost in the market, a few crore rupees, I pay a tax of few hundred rupees. I feel embarrassed. And I tell the municipality, why don't you revise? But they say that earlier we were not collecting any taxes at all. And now suddenly if we increase I know the things we have to resolve. So that is one tax. Non-tax revenue is such a wonderful source of potential has. I mean, it is immense possibility. And Mr. Ravi Ranjan Guru, and you mentioned about the Delhi Finance Commission report, which I had the privilege of chairing. And we had noted that the New Delhi Municipal Council is, if you say the finances, the revenue or the total financial resources divided by population per capita revenue, the NDMC may be number 1 in the country. Bombay is very high in gross term, but the population is also very high. Why? The NDMC has developed a model over the 100 years, and that is the model of renting out, leasing out the lands. The NDMC does not sell the land. They lease out for 30 years, and most of the major hotels in Delhi, they have come on the Delhi municipal NDMC land. And in 30 years, the property value appreciates, because around the major hotels, so many developments come. And the property, after 30 years, the lease rental goes up like anything and anything. I mean, it is crores, tens of crores, hundreds of crores of rupees the NDMC is getting by way of. So the municipalities must know what the properties they are having and how to exploit the value of the property to the best advantage, not by selling off, but by leasing out. Develop a market, rent out the shops. Rent out the shops and lease out the shops, like that. It is a wonderful opportunity. And government, you see that they say that you teach You give a hungry person those who eat fish, I mean, example, rather than giving fish, teach them how to fish. Yeah, that is a wonderful thing. Similarly, the government should, instead of giving them grant, give them land. From land, encourage them and guide them how to use their land profitably, so that they get sustained revenue. This is a wonderful opportunity there. And lastly, I would say that the revision of guidance value has to be done. Of course, there are programs of government, but revision of guidance value. You take a metro project, BRT line, whenever it comes, property value shoot up like anything. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 6 times, and so on, it will go. Whether the valuation is modified, in many cases, it is not modified quickly. And therefore, the benefit of high valuation goes to somebody else, where government invests the money. So these are some of the examples which will make the municipalities financially stronger, with very little pinch to the people. People, when they are becoming more prosperous, they would not mind sharing part of their prosperity with the municipality, provided municipalities provide the services also, improved services also.
Thank you so much, sir. I think it was very enlightening. The cities which are attending this webinar definitely get the sense how they can improve their financial system, or how can they improve their revenue streams. So now I would like to ask question to Mr. Azaz about, he was talking about the challenges cities are facing in inclusive development, especially public security and environment. There was the foremost points he mentioned. So I will talk about the environment, because it is the very hot topic, I should say boiling topic, because as UN Secretary General has said, the global warming is over. Now we are in the age of global boiling. So, sir, we are seeing July 2023 was the hottest month on record, and we are seeing wildfires in Canada, and it is impacting cities. Flash floods in Himachal Pradesh impacting Delhi. So, what is the solution that cities should look for when they are addressing climate change issues, environmental issues, the issue of environmental degradation? To you, sir.
Yeah, it's a very relevant question, especially in contemporary times. There are many events that are occurring, as you rightly said. I would say that certain things are beyond the control of human beings. There are certain disasters that occur over which humanity has no control. But in my view, and as everybody says and knows, that part of the damage can be reduced that is occurring because of the occurrence of these unfortunate events. The damage can be minimized. If you look at the incidents that are occurring in India, because we are more familiar with India, the conditions, one also doesn't know the reasons behind the occurrence of these events very clearly. Sometimes people say that the entire blame goes to the weather conditions and the changing weather conditions that are occurring across the globe. But then there is also a strong belief that the manner in which human activities are being conducted in the world, in India, at various places, at the settlement level, are responsible to a great extent in the occurrence of such unfortunate events. So my view is, number one is that, if you look at India, the occurrence of landslides in the mountain regions of India, for example, has happened because of soil erosion. It has happened because roads are being widened. It is happening because buildings are being constructed at places where construction should not be allowed ideally. It disturbs the ecology and environment of the area. The second thing is about the point here is that you need to do things in a way in which it does not harm the environment. In my view, if you look at for example, one example is about the case of water entering into our cities. In addition to ensuring good maintenance of water infrastructure that has been created by the municipalities and other agencies, such as keeping the drains and clean, and also ensuring that the drains are of a size that can handle the large volumes of water that is flowing in. I would say that new concepts such as a water square should be tried, which has been tried in many European nations, wherein you create depressions in the land, and then you put infrastructure in place so that the water that is received is diverted into those depressions. So civic governments, civic agencies need to be prepared for such eventualities. You have to make arrangements to handle the additional pressures that are being experienced. This is one way that can be adopted to address the challenges.
Indeed, very enlightful remarks on this in how to address environment degradation, especially this how they can channelize water streams, and especially also the issue is that the encroachment on wetlands and the flood plains, that we also need to look into it and how we can resolve the issue of urban flooding. Thank you so much, sir. And I'm sure that cities will take cues from your remarks and will learn and try to implement those initiatives. Now, to the last speaker, I will move to, and because he was talking about skewed urbanization. So I have a question for you specifically. When we look at urbanization in different countries, especially in developed world, we look at the major cities in those countries and the percent of population living in that. We can say that our urbanization is top heavy. But in his speech, Mr. Ammon Butch, he was DDA chairperson earlier and also part of National Commission on Urbanization. So he has said that Delhi is like a pimple on the face of India. The remarks he made. So do you think that, like, I was just looking at the data that like Amsterdam, 5% of country's population live in Amsterdam. You go to Istanbul, 15% plus. Paris, similar situation, 10% plus. So do you think that what the urbanization pattern in India and how we can address those challenges emanating from this kind of urbanization? Over to you, Mr. Saxena.
Thank you. See, there is some merit in aggregation and increasing the density. So the examples that you've given of Amsterdam or Paris, or if I move much closer to Singapore or Hong Kong, these are. So I see, personally, I think you cannot compare this to a situation of India. The right comparison which India should have is with a population and the scale and size is of China, US, probably Indonesia to some extent. So you cannot imagine a 10% population, which is around 14 crores living in Delhi. And do you want that kind of an urbanization also? Can our cities, can our governance models, can our infrastructure hold that kind of an urbanization? Or are we looking at a homogeneous spatial orientation where the cities are located and you have urban centers that are formed all across the countries? See, also you need to understand that India's unique pattern of urbanization does not mimic Amsterdam's and Paris. India's urbanization is largely dependent on the rural-urban migration and the cropping cycles that happen. We all know that after the Rabi harvesting in March and April, the construction activities goes up. And just before Kharif sowing, it goes down. So you are in consonance with the rural centers. The urban centers are not standalone units as we imagine them to be. So in India, I don't think that kind of a model of a 10% population living in a city is kind of sustainable to that extent with a population of 140 crores that we are talking about. So to my mind, I think it has to be a homogeneous urbanization. Agreed, Beijing and Shanghai are the hotspots in China, but you also have other cities in China which are provincial capitals, which are doing equally well and which have a population which is catering to the equal size. It does a couple of things. It reduces the load of the top urban center. It lets other cities grow. You don't need a person coming from all the way from Uttar Pradesh to Delhi only, or move to Bombay or to Calcutta. You can have urban centers which are located much closer to the rural towns. And since it's a migration based loop, you can have the same human capital feeding into urban loop and then moving into rural capital again and again. So I think that is the model that we need to follow in India. And I think for that, the things I've mentioned around public transportation is the key, where the mobility of persons moving within the cities is much more important, which Dr. Arvind Subramaniam, during his time as the chief economic advisor, has already highlighted, that we are having too little mobility within for an interstate movement also. So that is a peculiar thing about India. So I think that answers your question, if I can say.
Yes, thank you so much. I think India need, you rightly said, that indigenous model of urbanization. We cannot ape what Western countries are doing. But definitely, your point is valid that Indian states, whether it is UP or Bihar or Odisha, they need to build their urban centers so that people need not to go from, let's say, from Patna to Chennai or other places. So we need
Yeah.
to look at that, how this regional balance of urbanization we need to focus on. Thank you so much, Mr. Saxena. It was really enlightening. Now I would like to move to the case study that Mr. Ashish Verma, who is country coordinator for Global Covenant of Mayors. So I will ask Mr. Ashish to present the transformation of Leh, a case study, the how Leh city, in a very difficult terrain of India, transformed itself into a thriving community. And the process is still going on, but the process and how it happened. Over to you, Mr. Ashish.
Thank you, Abhishek, and thank you, All India Institute of Local Self-Government, for inviting us to this webinar. So yeah, we are going to discuss, a very specific case of Leh city in Ladakh Union Territory, which has recently been, developed as Union Territory. So I have a couple of slides which I would like to share with all of you. And, in fact, listening to the eminent speakers in the initial part of this webinar actually gave me a lot of ideas, since we are in this journey with Leh city, towards sustainable urbanization. And through European Union, we are, very in a very focused manner, we are working with Leh city. The entity is Leh Municipal Council, which we are, very specifically engaging with, and couple of projects since 2019. We are actually working with Leh city. So I'll start with the couple of introduction about Leh city, which is of course part of the Union Territory. In 2019, it has been categorized as one of the Ladakh as the Union Territory, and Leh is the capital city, and it is very well connected through road, airport, and so, most of you must be knowing, because a lot of tourist population from India as well as internationally, it's a very good tourist attraction. So from Manali, from Srinagar, it's very good highways which basically connects to Leh city. It's a very good tourist spot with a lot of historical places, but also attraction for trackers and other tourists, and it has this inherent physical, social, and cultural strength. Now, a little bit more about the Leh town, which has a very specific geography and climate, as Abhishek has mentioned. So the temperature actually goes down on up to -20 in main Leh city, and then summers it goes up to 25. So we recently been to Leh as part of our project activities, and we have witnessed these changes. So we have been visiting Leh for quite a long time. So those things we have witnessed, and now uh, in addition to a lot of tourist attractions, there are Buddhist temples and scenic locals, which is also one of the attractions about Leh. So, as I have mentioned, we are very specifically working with the Leh Municipal Committee, which has the following mandates as part of managing Leh town. So, starting from your street lighting, parking, trade licensing, birth and death certificates, and then public toilets, etc., which most of the local governments are managing in their respective jurisdictions. So through our activities, we are somehow trying to streamline all these activities, but also helping Leh city in incorporating some of the sustainable activities, some of the interventions which may lead into kind of sustainable development for Leh town. And these specific programs has its genesis in the between the European Union and Government of India's partnership on sustainable urbanization, which has actually started in 2016, and then year on year we kind of have incorporated different uh, additions to this partnership mandate. And very recently in 2020 also there was this EU-India strategic partnership or roadmap to 2025. So we are actually working in Leh City considering this background MOUs and partnership between European Union and India. So as I mentioned, one of our projects which basically focuses on partnering Indian cities with European cities. We have paired Leh city with a couple of Greek cities, which are called Trikala, Farkadona, and Meteora. And under this cooperation, we are actually guiding Leh city on the management of solid waste. So plastic waste management is one of the challenges which Leh city has been facing, because a lot of tourist population come and then this plastic waste has become a very serious issue. We also have partnered on the awareness activities regarding solid waste management. So not just the city population, but also the tourist population, which is a lot more than the resident population in Leh city. So we have been doing a lot of exchange visits between Leh and EU cities, just to showcase and exchange best practices in the areas of waste management. We have came up with the urban cooperation action plan, and then we have identified a couple of pilot projects that we will be doing. So in addition to this, we are also have agreed with Leh to prepare a climate action plan in accordance with the IPCC protocol. And this program is in preparation right now. We have collected all the baseline information for Leh city in terms of their baseline energy consumption, the future projections, but also the climate hazards and risk assessments have been carried out, and we have actually came up with a future projection regarding the climate risk for Leh city. And then in addition, we are also engaging the relevant officials in various capacity building activities. So this is a bit about our project, which is International Urban and Regional Cooperation, which is a global program where close to 84 cities, including Leh, have been participating, and we are continuously working on exchanging best practices and on different areas, including mobility, smart city, tourism, culture, etc. And we do so by engaging cities in different training programs, implementing pilot projects, workshops, meetings, etc. This is a bit about our climate action planning approach. So we, as I mentioned, we do this baseline analysis and conduct scenario analysis, assess the local capacity to reduce emissions, set greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, and then we actually, also help the city in implementing some of the pilot activities. So this is in nutshell about what we plan to do. But I mean, we are right now on a brink of a very solid milestone for Leh city. But we are planning to release this climate action plan by beginning of November, and then following which we will also be helping city in the implementation of certain outcomes. So in addition to this presentation, I have also a short videos less than 1 minute, which I think will kind of showcase our journey in Leh city, and which will give you an idea. Is it visible to all the video?
So you'll have to stop sharing and reshare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you see the video now?
Yes, we can.
Great.
You,
So it's a
you
very
have to
short
play.
video. Yeah. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashish, and for telling us how cities in different parts of country, maybe it is a difficult terrain. We know that temperatures, as you told, that goes minus 20 or below that. So there are some questions for our speakers. The first question from the audience, we are now taking question from the audience. So first question to the audience is for Dr. Sudhir Krishna. And there was some comments by Professor Mukesh Mathur also. So he has suggested that 74th Amendment of Constitution has not been implemented. That kind of comment, but not a question. And how we can improve the relation between Delhi government and central government, and he is proposing that NDMC area monitored by autonomous body and other by Delhi state government. So, but the question for Dr. Krishna is, sir, you spoke about the areas surrounding the cities which fulfill the labor requirements of the city. For example, people living in Delhi, but all the people living around, maybe in slum areas, they provide maid, drivers, and other kind of facilities to people living in posh areas. So don't you think that these areas, which are providing services, they do not get fair deal, but kind of civic services available there in informal settlements, I should say, or slums, are not at par with those posh colonies. So where is the problem and how we can address that, sir? Sir, you are in mute, so please unmute yourself.
Yeah. So Bombay is trying hard for redevelopment of the Dharavi slum and so on. And thing is, we have to have a clear vision and approach also, learning from the past. And the important lesson is the transportation connectivity, both regional framework and local. If the regional framework I mentioned before, that we must allow people to travel from outside the city to the city in a short time in a safe manner. Women should also feel safe in traveling using public transportation system, and elderly should be facilitated, or people who are physically having challenges, they should be facilitated to use public transportation system. That is one. Secondly, within the cities, mobility solutions. If there are walkways, you cannot walk anywhere in the city. And I see, if you go abroad, lessons and lessons. Walkability is being encouraged. People are walking. It improves the health. It helps the environment. And cycle paths should be there. A lot of female workers bicycle, especially in the lower strata. They bicycle to the workplace, but they bicycle only for a few 1 or 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers. If there are good cycle paths, people with lower economic activity framework, they can cycle for a long distance, provided they have a safe cycle way. People can walk. So a lot of issues can be resolved with the proper transportation planning. That is one. Secondly, I think governance strength is also required. Strength means, as I said earlier in my earlier comment, that we have built millions of houses in the economically weaker section houses in the last, say, 6 years. But I don't see many slums being removed. So who is living in those houses, and what happened to the people who are living in slums? Slums are very much there. And we must demolish the slum also. As soon as we allot the house, the entire, as was done in case of Sabarmati, more than 10,000, of course, it went through some difficulties also, litigation, etc. But that was the first experience of its kind, and we have learned the lessons. So the next experiment will not be that challenging as was the case of Sabarmati. More than 10,000 economically weaker section people living in the slums were relocated. And I visited the relocation area also. They're full of economic activities in a decent environment. Only thing is, it is away by 3, 4, 5 kilometers, and there is a commutation facility available. So therefore, a strong willpower is required to relocate the slums, not in situ development. In situ development, how is it possible? In most cases, it doesn't serve the purpose, because these slums have come up in ecologically fragile areas, on nala embankments, on water body embankment of lakes and ponds, and therefore, where is the question of redevelopment? We want water bodies also. We must respect water. We must nurture the water bodies in the cities and surrounding the cities. So a strong willpower is required, and we do not know who to ask, because municipalities are nowhere in the picture. There is a slum board, or there is some housing corporation which is doing that, and municipality is only maybe in some committee, there may be a member. So a strong city governance framework from housing perspective, where we must have a clear vision that these houses will be, so many houses will be built, but so many will be demolished also, which are in the ecologically fragile areas, which need to be cleared, and that must be implemented together. Not only that we will allot the houses today and we will think of clearing up the water bodies, catchment areas, etc. later. So I think a strong willpower along with the program management is required.
Okay, so thank you so much. This answers the question. And now there is a question. The person is not written. It is directed to whom, but I'm just asking the question. So maybe any one of you can respond. I feel that the person is asking, that is Indrani Priyadarshini, that I feel that every city has its own identity. Urbanization also has a homogenizing effect on our cities, wherein local traditions, craft, architecture get lost in these aspirations to become more and more developed. How can we create an urbanization paradigm which respects particular local cultures as well? Anyone who wants to respond? Rumi sir. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very valid point. It has been rightly pointed out. There is so much of talent and culture that exists in Indian cities and urban areas and even rural areas, but not sufficient efforts are being made to tap into these resources, which can be a game changer for the people who possess such talent. But I learned from my study of some of the Government of India recent initiatives that attention has been paid to this aspect. This point has not been overlooked in the sense that there are some projects that have been initiated. To be specific, I don't know whether people will like it or not, but it has been there under the Smart Cities mission that some cities, like for example, Agra, there is one city in Agra, and then there is another example I had learned about, yes, of Patna, where in Agra especially, a micro skill development center has been created, wherein women who belong to the lower income classes, lower income categories, who are in search of employment, who are interested in strengthening their household through earning some income on a day-to-day basis. For such women and for others, adults, male members, training facilities are being provided to nurture their skills. There could be some people who know stone inlay works, or women who know good embroidery work. For such persons, training centers have been established, and even in Tirupati, I learned under another project of the Smart Cities mission in Tirupati, the arts and crafts, people who possess skill in building designs for textile industry, their skills are being nurtured, they are being trained so that they are able to start some income in generating activity on their own or get absorbed into the existing professions that offer such opportunities. So little progress, as I said previously in my introductory remarks, Smart Cities mission is a small drop in the ocean, but yes, the administration and authorities have started working into this area of developing local skills.
Thank you so much, sir. I think it was apprehension when the Smart Cities mission began. So many experts and people said that all the cities, whether it is Bhubaneswar, Kanpur, Prayagraj, Varanasi, all cities will look same if we are developing one model of development planning. We are looking into it. So I think you have addressed that point that each city is including its cultural component and also training local artisans that how they can get economic benefit out of it. Thank you so much for giving the example of Agra and Patna. Now, there is a third question that I will direct to Mr. Abhishek Saxena, because he was also talking about the policies level changes in the governance mechanism of urban local bodies. So the question is, while climate change is being factored in by the governments while making policies, etc., it seems the environment still takes a backseat because we are still trying to balance climate change and development as if they are two different things. How is it that this realization can be generated among people at the city level? Mr. Saxena.
Sure. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Abhishek, for this question. Let me just for half a minute delve into the previous question of homogenization, which cities generally are blamed for. I think that is the right word for that. See, what is happening is you have to understand that urbanization also follows a trajectory. If you are talking about an industrial urbanization, where the incomes of the people are low, it definitely is a factor for homogenization. So you're talking about the ubiquitous blue jeans that we in India wear. They were primarily made for industrial workers. And everybody wore those same pair of trousers, those same pair of dark colored shirts and blue colored jeans was the ubiquitous dress that everybody had. Now, when you move above the ladder in terms of income, people want to assert their individual identities, and especially in an urban patterns where they have the means in terms of monetary requirements, the patronage for uniqueness in terms of art and culture is much higher. Now tell me one thing, the question is rightly asked. If I'm talking about an art and culture, can it have patronage in a rural setting where the incomes are pretty low? It cannot. It can only have patronage in an urban setting, and in an urban setting where we are moving from the lower income group to a middle income group and to a more service based economy. The patronage will happen only in urban centers, and there would be a differentiation in all those urban centers also, because every individual, every community and every city wants to have a unique identity. So that is for the last question that was raised. See, I think for the question that you asked for a climate change, whether it is factored in the urbanization pattern, and or is it at loggerheads with the development? See, I think what we need to understand is a lot of cities, and has been rightly mentioned by my previous previous speakers also, that there's a lack of capacity development at the urban level, and not only at the urban level, even at the state level, I can say that there's a lack of capacity development. So what is happening is there are time tested measures of development. So you burn coal, you lead to development. You build out more fossil fuel industries, it leads to development. So when the policymakers at different levels are trying to build policies, they tend to fall back upon the time tested measures of burning fossil fuels to induce development. And in India, where the 70% of our population is living under $2 per day on a PPP basis, I think development is a primary runner, and environment and climate change is definitely a second runner. But what we also need to understand that, and it has happened in a lot of countries, and India is following that model, is we need to decouple the emissions, which is the prime factor for climate change, from the development model. So as India has a lot of infrastructure which is yet to be built up. So what I'm trying to say is, by 2050, the infrastructure that you will see in 2050 in India, 80% of that is still not built up. So we can follow the path of clean energy based development, and we can have an emissions free development model which decouples from it. So just to give you a kind of a relative data, our GDP based emissions intensity has reduced by more than 40% from 1991 level. So from an economy wide perspective, we have kind of decoupled that, and there is a need to follow that kind of a model where the development and the climate change issues are married into one, and they go hand in hand together. I think that
this answers the question, and that because as a developing country, we need to also focus on development. To reduce poverty, we need to focus on development also. But there are solutions that we can, like you said, that marry climate change and development, and we can see positive results. We can reduce poverty and not having a dent on our environment. Thank you so much. Now I think we are running out of time. So I will hand it over. First of all, I would thank you all these panelists for being with us and giving insightful remarks on different aspects of urbanization and the challenges our cities are facing. Now, for progressing further, I will hand it over to Damini. Over to you, Damini.
Thank you, Abhishek. Your apt moderation has truly enriched the session. I would also like to seize this moment to extend my appreciation to our speakers, Mr. Ravi Ranjan Guru, Mr. Sudhir Krishna, Mr. Abhishek Saxena, and Mr. Rumi Ejaz, for the amazing and insightful discussion. Furthermore, a special acknowledge to Mr. Ashish Verma for presenting an exceptionally captivating case study. Thank you so much. Before we conclude today's webinar session, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Vibhuth at InfoComm India 2023. As you all know, our next edition of InfoComm India will be held in Mumbai from 25 to 27 October at Geo World Convention Center, And you can see more information on our website, www.infocom-india.com. Our V-booth at InfoComm India shall empower you to discover participating exhibitors and solutions you are interested in much more before the physical exhibition. By logging onto our website, you can now explore the products and solutions our exhibitors have to offer through content-rich multimedia presentation, engage with exhibitors before the show, and make appointments to meet them face-to-face at the in-person show in October. All these shall make your visit to InfoComm India more insightful. Here's a sneak peek video for you all. Kim, can we have the video?
With so many exhibitors at InfoComm India, who should you meet? With limited time, how would you identify exhibitors with solutions that match your needs? Start your search with V-Booth. Visit the official show website and select your industry and solutions of interest. Instantaneously, you will get a list of selected exhibitors. Learn more about each selected exhibitor and their solutions through their V-Booth, enriched with engaging multimedia content. Shortlist exhibitors with solutions that best match your needs. Send requests to meet at the show. V-Booth, making your visit to InfoComm India a highly efficient one like none other.
You can scan the QR code to directly land to our website and explore the solutions our exhibitor have to offer. Thank you very much. With this, we wish to see you all at Geo World Convention Center in October. Thank you.